published 1414 est, the 4th of December 2017 updated 1418 est, the 4th of December 2017. People have been dreaming about space travel for hundreds of years, long before the arrival of the spectacular technologies behind space exploration today: mighty engines, roaring fire and thunder, shiny metal shapes gliding in the vastness of the universe. We've only traveled into space in the last century, but humanity's desire to reach the moon is far from recent. In the 2nd century AD, Lucian's True History, a parody of travel tales, already pictured a group of adventure seekers lifted to the moon. The cover and main illustration of The Man in the Moon by Francis Godwin held in Horton Library, Harvard University. A whirlwind delivered them into the turbulence of lunar politics, a colonial war. And much earlier than any beep of a satellite, these dreams of moon travel were given real, serious thought. The first technical reckoning of how to travel to the moon can be found in the 17th century. It was inspired by astronomical discoveries. For a long time, it was thought that the world was encapsulated with ethereal or crystal spheres in which nested celestial bodies, but then Galileo managed to compile enough observational data to support Copernicus' theory of heliocentrism. This meant that the moon began, for the first time, to be considered an opaque, Earth-like object. Galileo's Starry Messenger, published in 1610, even featured some sketches of the eerie moon relief. In 1620, Ben Jonson's Masked News from the New World discovered in the moon was performed before King James I, entertaining the court with satire but also elucidating the newest astronomical viewpoints. Galileo's Starry Messenger, published in 1610, even featured sketches of the eerie moon relief. It was in the context of this moon fervor that John Wilkins, a 24-year-old graduate of Oxford University, published in 1638 the first edition of his book The Discovery of a World in the Moon. The book popularized Galileo's description of the moon as a solid inhabitable world. When preparing the much-edited and lengthened second edition of The Discovery, eventually published in 1640, Wilkins was impressed by Francis Godwin's story The Man in the Moon, also appearing in 1638, in which a character named Domingo Gonzalez is transported to the moon in a chariot towed by a flock of swans. After reading this piece of 17th-century science fiction, Wilkins suggested that not only must occasional travel to the moon be possible, but also regular visits and habitation. The moon was the ultimate traveling destination of his time, and moon travel a technological achievement pushing the historical and providential limits for mankind. The Man in the Moon appeared in 1638. Francis Godwin's story The Man in the Moon appeared in 1638, described as a voyage of utopian discovery. Godwin's astronomical theories were greatly influenced by Galileo Galileo's Sidereus Nuncius 1610, but unlike Galileo, Godwin proposes that the dark spots on the moon are seas. In the book, a character named Domingo Gonzalez is transported to the moon in a chariot towed by a flock of swans. He uses his flying machine to fly higher and higher, towards the moon, which they reach after a journey of 12 days. There Gonzales encounters the Lunars, a tall Christian people inhabiting what appears to be a utopian paradise. After 6 months of living among them, Gonzales becomes homesick and concerned for the condition of his birds, and sets off to return to Earth. He lands in China, where he is immediately arrested as a magician, but after learning the language manages to win the trust of the local Mandarin. Story ends with Gonzales meeting a group of Jesuit missionaries, who arranged to have a written account of his adventures sent back to Spain. Appreciating various fictional scenarios, Wilkins aimed to raise up some spirits eminent for new attempts and strange inventions and to contemplate practical ways of bringing the moon closer by traveling through space. In the pragmatic tone of an artisan, the second edition of The Discovery ruminates on the technicalities. Wilkins describes and designs various flying apparatuses driven by manpower, or towed by majestic exotic birds, and even imagines an engine to be contrived on the same principles as the legendary mechanical doves and eagles. He was also alerted to the challenges of moon travel, and even expressed a slight vexation that divine providence did not endow the human body with any natural means of flying. Enumerating the impediments to flight from the Earth, he humorously warns that there won't be any castles in the air to receive poor pilgrims, or errant knights. He discusses the nature of gravity, how difficult it would be to bring food and water to the moon, and to survive the cold and thin lunar air. But Wilkins also states with perfect assurance that the ways of conveyance through space would eventually be discovered. He predicts that as soon as the art of flying is found out, humans will make one of the first colonies that shall transplant into that other world, or glorifying the future of air travel. The discovery ends with Wilkins prophesying that posterity will likely be surprised at the ignorance of his age. A map of the moon engraved by the astronomer Johannes Hevelius in 1645, but this isn't the feeling kindled in his modern readership, although many of his conclusions about the moon are indeed mistaken, even though the answers were premature. Our contemporary investigations of the moon still follow the same trajectory of questions as did his Space Odyssey 1640, the presence of water, the possibilities for regular travel and colonization. Young John Wilkins meant to provoke the reader's curiosity concerning secret truths about nature, and fulfilled this purpose for centuries ahead. Space explorations tend to be viewed primarily as manifestations of spectacular and, alas, costly technologies. Is this not the reason why the moon flight program has been jammed for years? In the 17th century, motivation to design a means of travel to the moon was similar to our contemporary stimuli for space exploration as they were formulated at the dawn of the Apollo spaceflight program. People dreamed of pushing the boundaries of humankind and of bringing to life a great deal of useful knowledge. After all, it is not only machinery that drives human beings into space, but humanity's curiosity and imagination prompting the desire to reach beyond the possible.